We're almost there. Let's now connect app.js to React Redux. For that, in app.js, I'll import connect from React Redux. Connect is a higher order component. You'll learn about these in your favorite React course, I hope. You certainly did so in my React course. And connect is then used on your component, which you export here, and can receive arguments that allow you to connect your component to your Redux store. For this, I'm going to rewrite this and just set up the class here and not immediately export it. And then at the bottom of the file, I'll do that. And I'm simply doing that to make it a bit easier to read. So there I will export a default, which is my app. But now here, I will use connect, which is just a function that will return a function to which I then pass my app. Now the connect function itself also accepts two arguments. And I will create the values for these arguments in constants here. The first I'll name map state to props, though the name of course is totally up to you. This will be a function that receives the state. Connect will pass this argument into the function because we will pass that constant to connect, so connect will handle it. And there, in the function body, we have to return a JavaScript object where we map some keys, which we then can access as props in our component, to slices of our state. The keys I'm interested in are, of course, my places and the selected place. These are the two pieces of information I need to know in this container. The two pieces of information we already use, hence right now managed in the local state, which we will eventually replace. So, how can we get them? Well, we can get them from our global state. And since I use combine reducers here, we access it on state, then the property we chose here, so places, and then the properties this slice of the state holds. So in this case, places or selected place. So if I want to access the places in my Redux store, I access state, places to access that slice of the state here, because we used combined reducers. And then it's another places call to reach out to the places property in our state. For selected place, it's pretty similar. There we reach out to state places to reach out to that slice of the state, and then it's selected place. And that is how I map my state to props. Then I add map dispatch to props. You can also name this whatever you like, but that's just what it does, so it's a fitting name. It receives the dispatch function as an argument. This will also be passed in automatically by connect. And here we also return a JavaScript object where we map some properties of our choice to props we can use in our component, or where we can use these property names as props in our component. There I'll name the first one, and the name is totally up to you, just as up here. I'll name it onAddPlace. And it's mapped to a function. I'll use an arrow function here, which will, once executed, dispatch an action. Now to dispatch an action, I'll use my action creators. And remember that we bundle them all in the index.js file in the actions folder. So I can just import them from there. I'll add an import in my file here, where I import from source store actions, and there from the index file. And here I will import add place, delete place, select place, and deselect place, all four action creators. Now with that, I want to dispatch the first one, add place. And add place is a function, so we'll execute it as one. And add place also accepts or requires an argument, the name of the place. Now I expect to get this here as an argument. So we will later use onAddPlace as a property in our component, and when we execute it as a function, we just pass name. So name will then reach this function, and here we just pass it on. Now the same for deleting. OnDeletePlace is also a function, one without an argument though. And here we dispatch deletePlace. We also execute this because we're always interested in this action object these action creators return us. Then we got on select place. Here we get the key as the argument, and then we dispatch select place and pass on that key. And finally we got on deselect place. No argument is needed here. There we simply dispatch deselect place like that. With these two constants created, we now pass them to connect. The first argument has to be map state to props, and the second has to be map dispatch to props. With that, you created a connection between this component, so this app component, and your Redux store. And now in this component, we can use all these props we just mapped down there, either to access our state or to dispatch actions. Now, to do this, I'll first of all get rid of the state property here in this component. And in place add handler, I don't need to call set state. I just reach out to this props and then use this new on add place prop we just created down there. I'll execute it as a function, and I have to pass the name of the place we create. So on add place, execute it as a function, place name is what I forward. For delete handler, it's even simpler. I just execute this props on delete place. For modal close, I simply want to deselect the currently selected place. So I'll execute this props on, not on delete, on the select place. And for selecting, I will execute this props on select place and pass on the key. So this already got much leaner here. Now, as a next step, I will go to my JSX code, and whenever I access this state, I now have to access this props because we add these new places and selected place props. So I access this props selected place, and then here this props places. And with that, we should have an application that will work fine. We added reducers, actions, Redux, connected Redux to our React Native app. Let's now test it. If you go back and you reload your application, it might fail at this point. Because sometimes when you install new packages with npm install, it doesn't like that and it throws an error. Simply quit your running development process, which I have running in this console. It's very small, but it's running. You can quit it with Ctrl+C and restart it with npm start or by rerunning npm run Android or npm run iOS. If you don't have an error, as I do, so it seems to work fine, you may still do it just to be sure that everything is correct. So now I will simply rerun my iOS app, for example. This will then automatically also spin up this development process here in the terminal again. Here it opened a new one and relaunched the app. In my case here, it's even still complaining. So what you can always then do is uninstall your app from your simulator and rebuilding it, in this case with npm run iOS again. And now this looks good. So now let's test this. Let's add Munich here. Looks good to me. Let's also test it on the Android simulator, San Francisco in this case. Let's close that and open that. Looks good to me. Let's close the modal. All of that works, and this proves that React Redux is working. We can select, we can unselect. Let's now delete Munich and let's delete San Francisco. And that's all looking great. So now we connected React to our Redux app. How about debugging this though? And what about asynchronous action? Both will be covered later. I got a whole debugging section and we'll have plenty of time to run asynchronous code. But it's important to have these basics set, and you should have by now.